In the world of Dragon's Dogma 2, you will no doubt spend a great deal of time with your main pawn. They are your greatest ally and guide, partnering with you to navigate the open expanses of Vermund and Batal. As many veteran players of Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen will tell you, pawns can complement your playstyle or work in tandem with it. That being said, the first thing many veteran players noticed was while they could come close to matching the appearance of their main pawn from Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, certain hairstyles were no longer available. The second, and I would argue bigger complaint, was that voices are tied to personality, and the variety of voices available for each personality is limited. In both situations, I hope Capcom adds more hairstyle and voice choices in the future. After spending over 300 hours with my main pawn, my alt pawns, and some of my friends' pawns, I formed an initial opinion that hopefully can help you decide going forward what to focus on, their best characteristics, and how to take advantage of the different way they've been developed for Dragon's Dogma 2. Let's start with pawn badges and what the player should focus on. There are two types of pawn badges. One is a monster badge and the other is a field badge. All but one of my pawns have completed all of their pawn badges. The field pawn badge is, in my opinion, the most important. Pawns that have 100% area knowledge for that region can offer beneficial advice as to the location of nearby caves, campsites, treasure chests, and rift stones. It's up to the player to query the pawn at that moment. Wait too long and the pawn may not offer any helpful advice at all. Hail your pawn and inquire what they know, and you will usually be given a choice of caves, campsites, nearby rift stones, or treasure chests. Wait too long and the pawn will recite their strengths and/or specialization. When a pawn offers advice, usually with the phrase, "There are one or two places nearby," or "while in another world," then it is up to the player to use the command "go." An exclamation point will show up over the pawn that the player can follow. In all three cases, if you're interrupted by battle before reaching the location in question, then all the player need do when combat is over is use the command again, and the pawn will resume its lead to the previously mentioned place. There is one particular phrase of note the player should pay attention to, and that is this: "There's ought to be found here. Can you not see it?" In every case, the pawn is making the player aware that there is a seeker's token nearby. You may need to search a bit, but rest assured there's one hidden in plain sight. I've noted that pawns with 100% area knowledge are the ones that will use that phrase. The devs seem to imbue the pawns as well as NPCs with excellent pathfinding AI. At times, it is humorous as they retrace their steps, but in the end, they will take you directly to a chest or location. In DDDA, pawns were far more passive in their ability to lead. I can recall only one area that they did a good job in getting me to the general location of some items for a quest, and that was in Soulflare Canyon. In DD2, pawns will comment should you take the lead away from them, and will even comment should you veer from their course to explore some other objective. As far as bestiary knowledge and the pawns actively calling out weaknesses, even after 100% knowledge, or more correctly, completing X amount of kills, pawns make only a few statements. They will comment about striking a blow to the dragon's heart, aiming for the head of skeletons, or telling you that fire or ice or lightning won't do much good against certain enemies, but beyond that, they are far, far more reticent. All my pawns made the same comments, whether they had 30 griffin kills or 3, 1 drake kill or 20. That is, they knew enemy weaknesses after the first encounter. Some they even knew on sight, despite it being the very first time we battled a foe. As for quest knowledge, when you have a quest as active in your list, then when hiring pawns, you will either see a yes or no in the quest guide section of the pawn's information. That being said, if you don't have any quest highlighted and are looking to hire a pawn, then the guide may very well say no, even if the pawn knows how to help you to complete a given quest. As you have no doubt seen, any one of the pawns in your party may choose to help you complete a quest. This is shown by the upright hand in place of their marker on the map and next to their name in the game. If the pawn has done the quest before, then they can guide another towards the same objective. On to pawn personalities. I've had occasion to either create or use pawns of every personality type and vocation. As I postulated before the game released, straightforward pawns are similar in nature to the Scather pawn of DDDA, without the downside of climbing every enemy they see. That being said, don't be surprised when your straightforward fighter or warrior does climb. In many ways, they can do it better than the player. Kind-hearted does not mean a guardian pawn. They don't follow you around like a lovesick puppy. Instead, while you are their focus, meaning they will aid or buff you first, only if you're nearby, I might add, make no mistake that they can and will battle enemies if given the appropriate skills to do so. Calm pawns lean far more towards the defensive side of strategizing and tactics. Again, they'll fight hard in battle, but prefer to remain at a distance when they can. And I'd be remiss if I didn't add that being kind-hearted or calm doesn't mean they won't climb or levitate to the top of an enemy. However, the occasions they do it are pretty few and far between. Simple pawns like to loot and find resources and share it with their companions. They may range a bit far from the party. This personality works well for all but the mages, sorcerers, and archers. Mages and sorcs still need time to use a skill, and while archers can use a core skill to back away from any enemy they encounter, they no longer have daggers with which to quickly dispatch a chopper, bandit, or hobgoblin. Keep in mind, the simple personality types may discard items if they become overburdened. There's no priority as to what they discard either. So while they are relentless in their search for resources, they do require a bit of micromanaging when it comes to their inventory. Besides improved pathfinding and less repeating of some out-of-battle phrases, although not all, the main improvement is that of personality degradation. By that I mean your main pawn will not slowly and inexorably pick up the personality traits of the pawns you hire, nor be influenced by enemies in the same way they were in DDDA. And at this point, early on, I haven't seen any hidden timers at work, although, again, it's still early days. What all this means is that once you've chosen a specific personality for your pawn, they will remain that way until you use Riff Incense to change it, or the Art of Metamorphosis. The downside is the devs introduced Dragonsplague, which is a complete corruption of your pawn. Using a mod, I'm able to see the counter that each pawn has, and I note that this seems to play a far bigger role in the unmoored world than before entering it. During that part of the game, I watched my main pawn's Dragonsplague counter slowly tick down from 10 to 5 with every enemy we encountered, until we ultimately moved on to New Game Plus. Finally, the small things. My pawns have caught me in falls from heights, such as a harpy picking me up and dropping me, and I've even been caught falling off of a dragon or a griffin. These events are pretty rare, but they do happen about as often as they did in DDDA. It is mostly the kind-hearted that manage to catch me, but it isn't exclusive to that personality. Furthermore, while pawns may not use one particular set of skills or a skill as one personality type, if you are dead set on them using that skill or set of skills, then try another personality type. If the trade-off is worth it, then by all means give it a whirl. I've tested this extensively. However, I lost so much of what made my pawn that I immediately switched her back to her former personality and skills. I've never looked back. Pay attention to the skills your pawn does use most often and well, because just like in DDDA, there are those skills that pawns will never be talented at. Look at augments from each of the vocations pawns have access to and see what is best for your pawn's build. Finally, you can't teach your pawns to use a certain set of skills in a certain order, no matter how much time you spend trying to show them. Nor do they come back from another's world doing something different that they might have learned from another pawn or player. It just doesn't happen. In fact, I've heard some of the same anecdotes from the pawns even when I knew that I was the only player they had traveled with on an alt account, for example. Is it humorous to think your pawn was a tad incautious or that fighting golems was horrific? Especially if you didn't fight them. Sure, but they are just set conversation pieces they say no matter who rents them or what they did in that other world. I will have more to say on pawns as I put additional hours into playing Dragon's Dogma 2. Comment below on your pawn's personality and vocation. I'd be interested to hear what skills and augments you prefer for your pawn, too. Until then, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.